Modern historians generally believe that the Iliad reflects a set of historical events. Most historians accept that at some point around 1250 to 1200 BC, the city of Troy was destroyed by a raiding party from the Greek mainland. This is a map of the cities in ancient Greece, and Troy is right here. Many also believe that the Iliad, while probably wrong in most of its historical detail, reflects some historical realities from the Late Bronze Age and Dark Ages. In the Iliad, Homer describes Troy as being a great city, defended by huge towers and walls. These walls were built with large stone blocks, with towers at intervals. The city itself was very large, as it had wide streets, a palace for King Priam, an open marketplace, and homes for its residents. There were also temples for Athena and Apollo. Here is an artist's interpretation of what Troy looked like before the Trojan War. Researchers of the 18th century had rejected the idea of the Trojan War, saying it was just a story made up to entertain audiences. However, this belief was changed by Heinrich Schliemann. This is a photo of Heinrich Schliemann. He was determined to find the site of Troy so he could prove that Homer's account of the epic war in the Bronze Age was true. Following geographical clues from the Iliad, he set out along the northern part of western Turkey with his young Greek wife Sophie to search for the site. In 1870, he found a site that was geographically accurate according to the Iliad. The distance from the sea was right, Mount Ida was visible, and the ground around the outcropping was flat, so someone could run around the walls as described in the Iliad. The site was a hill near the small town of Hisarlik. In 1870, he started excavations on the hill, and on his very first day, he uncovered the foundations of a house. On his second day, with more help, he uncovered the rest of the house, and a coin bearing on one side the image of Hector with the inscription, Hector of Troy. This erased any doubt from Schliemann's mind that the site he had uncovered was Troy. These are some pictures of when Troy was first being excavated by Schliemann. After gaining permission from the Turkish government, he excavated at his own expense in 1872 and 1873. The Turkish government imposed strict conditions to ensure he preserved their ancient heritage. These included the finds were to be divided, with half going to the Turkish Archaeological Museum. Ruins uncovered were to be left in the state that they were found. Existing structures were not to be demolished, and the dig was to be financed by Schliemann. Schliemann, however, only complied with the last condition. He destroyed many walls and structures on the site and tried to smuggle the treasures he discovered out of the country. Schliemann's work in the verification of a Trojan War was continued by Carl Blegen, who discovered King Nestor's palace in 1939. Recent progress in the field of archaeological research and excavation has resulted in findings which may assist in proving the historical detail contained within the Iliad. For example, in 1993, a huge 5.5-metre thick stone wall extending beyond the Late Bronze Age citadel was detected 1.8 metres below the ground using remote sensing survey equipment. Archaeologists have yet to date the wall, but it is possible that if the wall is discovered to be as big as they anticipate, the site will be as big as Homer described it in the Iliad. This is a map of the possible extensions of the city wall. So, here. This gives significant credibility to the Iliad, as it had been thought that Homer had greatly exaggerated the dimensions and significance of Troy. Here are some photos of the excavations of Troy today. Based on layers of soot found at the archaeological site of Troy, indicating that the city had been burned, it seems that ancient Trojans were involved in wars. But the details of these wars is unknown, and the soot layers don't match up exactly with the time the wars described in the Iliad are said to have taken place, which was around 1200 BC. The armour that Homer describes is more likely to be from his own era than from the Bronze Age, although the descriptions are somewhat mixed. Ajax's tower shield makes sense in the context of the shields depicted in the Bronze Age artwork, which are very tall and either rectangular or shaped like a curved hourglass. However, most of the other shields that are described as being circular, which are more from Homer's time as far as modern scholars can tell. Here are some images. Images of both the shields described in the Iliad. As you can see, the rectangular shield is very similar to that described as being Ajax's tower shield, and this is the other shield, the circular shield that was described. The body armour is similarly from mixed ages. Helmets covered with wild boar teeth, as described in the Iliad, were also found to be used in the Bronze Age. Before Homer's time, the story of the Great Trojan War was sung by travelling bards. Here are some interpretations of what the travelling bards would look like. The songs were recited from memory, which proved the opportunity for slight variance every time they were told. They also no doubt changed and embellished the story as it was passed down orally, to keep audiences on the edges of their seats. While this may not have seemed like a big deal at the time, over the years it is most likely the story that Homer heard about was very different to the original. Of course, when Homer made the story into his poem, he would have changed it himself to make it more poetic. Another factor that could have changed the story over the years was the evolution of the spoken and written language. As language evolves, traditional words are replaced with modern interpretations, which may not necessarily be the same. Not only would this have occurred when Homer interpreted the stories told, but it would keep occurring every time the Iliad is translated, even from ancient Greek to English. Here is a book cover of the Iliad which has been translated into English. When Homer commenced writing the Iliad, he was writing about historical events that had occurred hundreds of years before. So even if he had heard numerous versions of the story, he could not possibly know for sure all of the details. As a result, much of the information contained within the Iliad is quite obscure. In the Iliad, Homer rationalized many of the events that occurred by putting the emphasis on the power of the Greek gods. However, as time has progressed, the people's belief in the power of the gods has diminished. As a result, the references to the Greek gods have lessened the historical value of the Iliad. The Iliad is a valuable historical source. However, it has been ascertained that it is not factually accurate in many areas. It did, however, provide the geographical clues Schliemann needed to discover what is thought to be the archaeological remains of Troy. The Iliad's historical value has been somewhat diminished by the interference of its literary elements. The need to make the stories entertaining, combined with the issues of translating and remembering a song, would no doubt have resulted in inaccuracies and embellishment of the original story, which in turn has reduced its historical value. Thank you.